Sometimes, there are stories. Stories that stir something deep inside you. Something you can't quite explain. There are stories that begin with a loud thunder, with chaos, with the kind of drama that instantly pulls people in. And then, there are stories like this one. The ones that begin in quiet rooms, with quiet people, carrying storms inside them that the world never sees. This story begins in a small American town called Rivermount, a place where winters were long, streets were silent after 9 p.m., and everyone knew everyone's grandparents by name. It was peaceful, or at least, it looked peaceful from the outside. But inside one old wooden house at the very end of Willow Street, a 17-year-old boy named Aiden Miller was learning the hardest truth of life. Sometimes the people who look the strongest are actually the ones breaking the most. Aiden lived alone with his mother, Grace Miller, a woman who smiled at the world, but cried when no one was watching. Aiden's silent world. Aiden wasn't like other boys his age. He didn't laugh too loudly, didn't hang out at parties, didn't talk about college or girlfriends or dreams. His world was small, a world built around one person. His mother. Grace had been sick for years, but she never talked about it. Doctors said she had a failing heart. But the truth was, her real wounds were emotional. Wounds from a past she never shared with her son. Aiden had grown up learning to read her silence. He knew when her smile was real, and when it was just a mask she wore so he wouldn't worry. Every morning, he woke up early, cooked breakfast, packed her medicines, and left a note on the fridge. "Ma, don't forget your pills. I love you, Aiden." He left the same note every day, because he didn't know what else to do. Love was the only language he knew. The burden he carried alone. At school, Aiden was invisible. Teachers saw him as quiet. Students saw him as strange. But the truth was far deeper. Aiden was tired, mentally, emotionally, and physically. He worked part-time after school at a grocery store to help pay bills. Every dollar mattered. Every hour mattered. Every heartbeat of his mother mattered. Kids his age were planning road trips. Aiden was planning how to afford his mother's next doctor visit. But he never complained, not even once, because sometimes life doesn't give you the luxury to fall apart, especially when you're the only strength another person has. The day everything changed. It was a cold Thursday morning in November when Aiden noticed something different. His mother didn't wake up on time. She always did. Even on her worst days, she tried to make it look like she was fine. But that day, she didn't move. Aiden felt a knot tighten in his chest. He walked to her bedroom slowly, each step heavier than the last. "Ma," he knocked softly. No answer. He opened the door. There she was, Grace Miller, sitting on the edge of her bed, hands trembling, staring at nothing. Aiden moved closer. "Ma, are you okay?" She looked up at him. And for the first time in his life, Aiden saw something in her eyes he had never seen before. Fear. "Aiden," she whispered, I think I'm getting worse." Those 7 words shattered him. He didn't cry. He couldn't. He just nodded like a grown man who had accepted his fate long ago. "It's okay, Ma," he said softly. "I'm here." But inside, he felt something breaking. A crack he had been holding together for years. School, life, and a girl named Emma. Aiden tried to go to school that morning, but his mind wasn't there. He walked through hallways filled with laughter that didn't belong to his world. He sat through classes where people talked about dreams he couldn't afford. And then, something unexpected happened. A girl named Emma Carter sat next to him in literature class. Emma wasn't like the others. She had the kind of smile that didn't judge. The kind of eyes that actually saw people. She looked at Aiden and asked, "Are you okay? You look tired." No one had ever asked him that before. He hesitated. Should he tell her? Should he pretend? He chose silence. But Emma didn't look away. "It's okay," she said softly. "Some people don't talk because they don't want to be heard. And some don't talk because they're afraid no one will understand." Aiden slowly turned toward her. "How do you know that?" he asked. She shrugged. "I've been there." For the first time in a long time, Aiden felt something warm, a feeling he had forgotten. The feeling of being seen. The collapse. That evening, Aiden rushed home, carrying medicine, groceries, and a hope that maybe his mother had rested well. But when he opened the front door, everything fell apart. Grace was on the floor, unconscious. Aiden froze. The world stilled. Breathing became impossible. Then suddenly he screamed, "Ma!" He dropped everything, fell to his knees, and shook her gently. "Please, Ma, wake up, please." His voice cracked. His hands trembled. He felt like a child again. A helpless, scared child. He called 911. His voice shaking. His heart breaking. Minutes later, the house filled with paramedics, machines, and urgency. They took Grace away. They didn't let Aiden ride in the ambulance. He stood in the cold night, watching the flashing red lights disappear down the street, carrying the only family he had. And in that moment, Aiden realized something. He had never been more alone in his life. The hospital night. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and sadness. Aiden sat in the hallway, hands clasped, eyes burning, body shaking. Every memory of his mother flooded him at once. Her voice, her smile, her touch. The way she said his name. A doctor finally approached him. "She's stable, for now," he said. "But her condition is serious. We'll need to run more tests." Aiden felt his throat close. He nodded, because that's all he could do. The doctor walked away. Aiden leaned back against the wall, closed his eyes, and let the tears finally fall. He didn't cry loudly. He didn't break dramatically. He cried the way people cry when their soul is tired. Silently, painfully, endlessly. At midnight, his phone buzzed. A message from Emma. "I noticed you didn't come back to class. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Aiden stared at the screen. Someone cared. Someone actually cared. He typed back, "My mom's in the hospital." 3 seconds later, "Emma, which hospital? I'm coming." The unexpected light. Emma arrived with 2 cups of hot chocolate, a blanket, and the softest expression Aiden had ever seen on someone's face. She sat beside him without asking for permission, without asking for explanations, just being there. And sometimes, presence is the greatest kindness. Aiden didn't talk much. Emma didn't force him. She just whispered, "You're not alone tonight." And for the first time in a very long time, he believed it. Aiden sat in the corner of the hospital hallway, the cold metal chair pressing into his back. The world around him had turned into a slow-moving blur, nurses rushing, machines beeping, footsteps echoing, but inside him everything felt frozen. Emma sat quietly beside him, her hands wrapped around a paper cup of hot chocolate, though it had already gone cold. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her presence alone kept him from collapsing. Hours passed like heavy stones sliding across his chest. A nurse finally came out and said, "We've moved your mother to the intensive care unit. You can see her, but only for a few minutes." Aiden stood instantly, his legs trembling beneath him. Emma placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Go," she whispered. "She needs you." He walked through the dim hallway, each step echoing his fear. When he reached the ICU door, he paused. He wasn't ready to see his mother like this. He wasn't ready to face the truth he'd been avoiding his entire life. Yet he pushed the door open. Grace lay on the bed, hooked up to wires and machines. Her breathing was shallow. Her face looked smaller, weaker, quieter than he had ever seen it. Aiden walked to her side and took her cold hand in his. "Ma," he whispered. Her eyelids fluttered weakly. She tried to smile but failed. Aiden leaned closer, his voice cracking. "I'm here. Please, don't leave me." Grace's fingers twitched slightly, squeezing his hand with what little strength she had left. Her voice was barely a breath. "You've grown so much, Aiden, you've carried everything alone, I'm sorry." Aiden shook his head, tears spilling. "Don't say sorry. Just get better, please." But Grace's eyes held a truth he didn't want to hear. "They told me, my heart is failing faster. I've been hiding it from you, so you could still live like a child." Aiden felt an invisible knife twist inside him. "I never got to be a child." Grace closed her eyes, pain crossing her face. "I know, and that will always be my biggest regret." A nurse tapped his shoulder gently. "Sir, your time is up for now." Aiden hesitated but slowly released his mother's hand. As he walked out, he felt something breaking deeper than before, because now he understood how fragile time really was. Emma was still waiting in the hallway, her expression softening when she saw his face. "Aiden, what happened?" He couldn't speak. He simply sat beside her and buried his face in his hands. For the first time, Emma wrapped her arms around him. Aiden didn't push her away. Instead, he let himself collapse into the comfort he had been deprived of his entire life. No words were exchanged, no explanations, just two hearts sitting quietly under the weight of the world. The next morning, Aiden returned home only to grab a few things. The house felt colder without his mother's presence. The silence was suffocating. He walked to her bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the pillow that still carried her scent. A small box sat on the nightstand. He'd never seen it before. Curiosity drowned his hesitation. Aiden opened it. Inside were old photographs, letters, and a small silver locket. His mother holding a man he had never seen. His mother smiling in ways he had never witnessed in real life. Pictures of her with a baby. Him, but also pictures of a family he didn't know existed. His breath hitched. His hands shook as he opened an envelope labeled, "For Aiden, when you're old enough to know the truth." He unfolded the letter, his heart pounding. "Aiden, I never told you about your father because I wanted to protect you from the pain he caused me. He left before you were born. He didn't want the responsibility. He chose another life, and I decided you would never have to feel abandoned. You would only know love, even if it came from one person. I'm sorry I kept this from you. Forgive me, Mom." Aiden felt like the ground beneath him was crumbling. He had always wondered, always hoped, always imagined that his father might return someday. But the truth was far uglier than his imagination had ever dared to be. Emma's words from the night before echoed in his mind, "You're not alone tonight." But today, he felt utterly alone. He closed the box and pulled his mother's old sweater close to his chest. A trembling exhale escaped his lips. "Why did you hide this from me, Ma? Why?" The house didn't answer. It just swallowed his grief. Back at school, Aiden moved through the hallways like a ghost. People noticed the dark circles under his eyes, the stiffness in his shoulders, the silence in his steps. But no one asked, except Emma. She found him sitting alone under the oak tree behind the library. She sat beside him, knees drawn close, hands resting softly. "Aiden." He didn't look at her. She leaned closer. "Your mom, is she worse?" He nodded. Emma's voice softened. "What can I do?" He shook his head. "Nothing." She didn't leave. She didn't push. She just sat there. After minutes of silence, he finally spoke. "My father, he left before I was born." Emma's face tightened with empathy. "I'm sorry." Aiden clenched his jaw. "She hid everything from me. She wanted to protect me. But all she did was leave me with questions I don't know how to live with." Emma hesitated, then said quietly, "Sometimes parents think hiding pain is the same as protecting their children, but pain has a way of finding us anyway." Aiden looked at her for the first time that day. "How do you know?" Emma swallowed. "Because, my dad left too." Aiden froze. She continued, "He didn't walk out. He died. Car crash. I was 10. My mom fell apart. I had to grow up fast, like you." Aiden felt the wall around his heart soften. Emma whispered, "You're not alone in this kind of pain, Aiden. I promise." Days passed. Grace's health worsened. Doctors used words like critical, unstable, progressive failure. Aiden spent nights in the hospital, doing homework in the corner, staring at the machines that kept his mother alive. Emma visited whenever she could, bringing food, warmth, and the kind of gentleness Aiden didn't know he needed. One night, Aiden was sitting beside his mother when she opened her eyes weakly. "Aiden." He leaned closer. "I'm here, Ma." Her breathing was labored. "I need to tell you something I couldn't before." Aiden felt his pulse spike. "What is it?" Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Your father, he came back once. When you were 5. Aiden felt the air leave his lungs. She continued, "He wanted to take you. He said he had changed. But I didn't trust him. I couldn't hand you over to a man who had already broken us once." Aiden stared at her, his voice trembling. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because," she whispered, "I didn't want you to believe he wanted you. I didn't want you to grow up waiting for him. I wanted you to grow up with certainty, even if it hurt." Aiden felt something inside him twist painfully. He didn't know what to feel. Anger, pain, betrayal, gratitude, everything mixed until nothing made sense. Grace placed a trembling hand on his cheek. "You were always enough, Aiden. He didn't leave because of you. He left because of who he was. Never blame yourself." Aiden felt tears building again. "Don't talk like you're leaving. Please." Grace smiled faintly. "I just want you to live, even after I'm gone." Aiden broke. The words hit him like a storm. No, don't say that. I can't. But a nurse rushed in. She needs rest. Aiden stepped back as machines beeped faster. Nurses surrounded the bed. Aiden's heart pounded, panic rising in his throat. "Ma," he cried as they closed the curtain. A nurse held him back gently. "Please, let us work." And Aiden stood there, helpless, terrified, shattered. That night, sitting alone in the hospital corridor, Aiden texted Emma. "Can you come?" Her reply came instantly. "Already on my way." And when she arrived, breathless from running, she didn't say a word. She sat beside him. He leaned into her shoulder. And for the first time, he allowed himself to sob, unrestrained, unfiltered, broken. Emma held him tightly, tears in her own eyes, whispering, "You're not losing her alone. I'm here. I'm right here." And in that moment, for the first time in his life, Aiden believed that maybe, just maybe, the world still held a little bit of light. The dawn broke slowly over Rivermount, the soft golden light spilling across the hospital windows. Aiden sat by the window, exhausted, eyes red and raw. The night had been long, unending, filled with the kind of fear that twists the stomach and claws at the heart. But somehow, he had survived it. Somehow, he had held on. Emma sat across from him, her hand resting gently on his arm. "She made it through the night," she whispered. Her voice was soft, cautious, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile peace that had been won. Aiden didn't speak. He simply nodded, too drained for words. Relief, gratitude, exhaustion, every emotion collided inside him, and he let them all spill quietly into the empty space. When the nurse finally came to update him, she smiled gently. "She's stable for now. Nothing more you can do than be here with her." Aiden exhaled, a long, shuddering breath that seemed to release months of tension, guilt, and fear. He turned to Emma, words finally forming in his throat. "Thank you, for being here. I don't know what I would have done without you." Emma smiled faintly. "You would have been fine. But sometimes, we all need someone to just sit with us when the world feels too heavy." The next hours were quiet. Aiden held his mother's hand while she slept. Each shallow breath was a reminder of how fragile life truly is, how fleeting the moments are that we often take for granted. He whispered stories to her, small things from school, silly incidents, memories they had shared. Grace listened, her eyes closed, her hand squeezing his weakly every now and then, a silent acknowledgement that she was still present, still fighting. It was in these hours, sitting silently beside her, that Aiden realized the magnitude of her love. For all the pain she had endured, for all the sacrifices she had made, she had never let him feel alone. Her love was steady, unwavering, invisible yet omnipresent, a force that had shaped his entire being. And now, for the first time, he truly understood it. Days passed. Aiden began to adjust to the rhythm of the hospital, to the quiet, to the fragile hope. He learned that life wasn't about the absence of struggle, but the courage to keep moving forward, one small step at a time. Emma continued to visit, her presence a constant reminder that connection and compassion can survive even the heaviest of storms. She didn't try to fix everything. She just stayed, offering the comfort of a hand, a smile, a quiet conversation. Then one evening, Grace's eyes fluttered open. Aiden, who had been silently reading a book at her bedside, looked up instantly. Her weak, trembling smile illuminated the dim hospital room. "Aiden," she whispered, "thank you for being here, for never leaving me alone." He leaned down, pressing his forehead gently against hers. "I'll never leave you alone, Ma. Not now, not ever." Tears rolled freely down both of their faces. Grace squeezed his hand and whispered softly, "Remember, life is fragile. Love is everything. Carry it forward, always." Aiden nodded, holding her hand as though he could absorb every ounce of her wisdom into his own heart. And in that small moment, the world outside the hospital walls didn't matter. There was only love, only family, only the unspoken bond that had endured every trial. Weeks later, Grace began to recover slowly. She was weak, yes, but alive. And Aiden, he had changed profoundly. The experiences of the past months had carved out a new understanding within him, a depth of empathy, patience, and gratitude he had never known. He began helping others quietly, in the same way his mother had always helped him. Small gestures, small acts of kindness, yet meaningful beyond measure. Donations to the local shelter, comforting friends in need, sharing his time without expecting anything in return. Every action felt like an echo of the love his mother had instilled in him. One afternoon, Aiden and Grace sat on the porch of their home, watching the sun filter through the autumn leaves. Aiden turned to his mother. "Ma, I think I understand now. You were never just taking care of me. You were teaching me how to live, how to love, how to be human." Grace smiled, her eyes glistening with pride. "Yes, my boy, and now it's your turn to carry that forward. Make the world a little softer, a little brighter, wherever you go." Aiden looked out over the street, where children were laughing, neighbors were chatting, and life flowed gently as it always had. But he saw it differently now. Every smile, every small kindness, every moment mattered. And he carried within him the lessons, the love, the strength of a woman who had given everything for her child without expecting anything in return. Months passed, and life gradually returned to a fragile sense of normalcy. Emma remained a steady presence in Aiden's life, though now as a trusted friend, someone who understood the weight of pain and the value of presence. School, work, responsibilities, all continued, but Aiden's perspective had changed irrevocably. He had learned the impermanence of hardship, the enduring power of love, and the quiet resilience that comes from truly being seen and supported. One evening, while watching the sunset from his porch, Aiden whispered into the fading light, "Ma, I hope you're proud. I hope I carry your love the way you carried mine. I hope I never forget what truly matters." He closed his eyes and felt the warmth of her hand resting on his shoulder, not physically, but within his heart, a presence that time or distance could never take away. The wind carried the faint scent of her perfume, the memories of her laughter, and the quiet lessons she had embedded in his soul. And in that moment, Aiden smiled, not because the world was perfect, but because he had learned to see the beauty that had always existed. In love, in family, in small gestures, and in the quiet resilience of a mother's heart. Life would continue, challenges would arrive, but Aiden knew this truth now. Love endures, love teaches, love remains, even when everything else changes. And with that understanding, Aiden faced the world again, not with fear, but with gratitude, courage, and the unshakable knowledge that some bonds are eternal. Some touches, some words, some hearts remain forever, unbroken, unyielding, and deeply alive. We hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to our channel, Real Life USA Stories. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories to you. Thank you for watching, and remember, love and cherishing your loved ones is the greatest strength. Stay tuned for more stories on Real Life USA Stories.